So welcome back for another Tuesday Thought video. This week we're going to talk about where the soybean nitrogen credit comes from. Usually when we're making fertility plans for the next crop, we always want to think about past crops and do they provide a nitrogen credit for nitrogen management. So often we talk about soybeans as being a crop that provides for nitrogen credit going into the next year. Now, why is that? Simply, the soybean residue is a very low C/N ratio dry matter. So with a C/N ratio of say 8:1 or so, that provides the necessary recipe for quick breakdown and release of nitrogen that is held within old crop residues. Now, where does this nitrogen all come from? You got to think about both above ground and below ground. So the old soybean leaves and pods, stems, they have a certain amount of nitrogen that will mineralize out of that organic material. But we also got to think about the root system. The root system is pretty expansive. We have all those nodules that were fixing nitrogen last year. They're full of now dead bacteria that was responsible for fixing that nitrogen. So we have both a low C/N ratio in the soil. Part of our past crop is in the old roots, in the old root system. We have a low C/N ratio in the leftover dry matter, stems, leaves on top. So both pieces together with that low C/N ratio equals a release of nitrogen to the upcoming crop. Now, for Ward Laboratories, our general rule of thumb is to allow 40 pounds of nitrogen as a credit for soybeans. So now, how does your yield affect that? We stick with 40. Now, you could reduce that if you have very low-yielding soybeans that were able to go full season. Say there's a drought or some sort of herbicide damage. Your soybeans don't get much over 20 bushel. Yeah, we might want to revisit 40 pounds and maybe reduce that some. But once again, if we've had reduced root growth, reduced above ground biomass production, our nitrogen pool that's going to mineralize is not as big. So low yield, yeah, we might want to back that off. Now for these high yielding folks, we're talking about, we got soybean yields 85 bushel plus. Is there more nitrogen out there? Once again, more biomass both above and below ground. Is there more nitrogen there to mineralize? Probably. But once again, we want to be somewhat conservative or somewhat, hedge our bet on how much nitrogen we're going to get. So if you wanted to take that 40 pound, say you had 85 bushel soybeans, maybe take that 40 pound credit up to maybe 55 or 60 pounds of N. We wouldn't really recommend anything over a 60 pound nitrogen credit. But once again, if you've got the ability to say come back in and do side dressing or late season over the top application of nitrogen, maybe you'd want to push that nitrogen credit a little bit higher since you have the ability to manage nitrogen closer and we can maximize grain production per unit in for that next crop. So hopefully this helps explain a little bit about why we have that nitrogen credit for soybeans. And certainly these are more than just soybeans. We have other leguminous crops, alfalfa, other sort of beans, pinto beans, chickpeas. All these different crops have some element of nitrogen, some aspect, of nitrogen availability to the following crop, all because of the way their C/N ratios are in both the biomass above ground and most importantly the biomass below ground. So thank you for your time today.